Hi, and welcome to this channel where I make videos on meditation, spirituality, and consciousness. Today's video is on relationship with other people in a way that isn't strictly spiritual, but you could say it's a spiritual perspective around resolving conflict in relationship. But I'm going to start talking about something that would seem totally unrelated, which is making art, which is maybe more fun than resolving conflict. Anybody who has engaged in any creative process or made any art knows that it's pretty nonlinear, right? You start maybe with like a general idea. I don't know, I'm going to paint something, or it could be something practical, like I'm going to paint my house, or I'm going to do this project. I have to fix this thing. I don't know, I'm going to do a repair on this piece of my house or something like that. And you know what you want more or less, right? I want to create a painting, I want to create a photograph or whatever it is. But then as soon as you actually dive into creating things, it doesn't usually go the way that you think it will. So like all sorts of unexpected things come up. I don't know, you could be landscaping and maybe the perfect, garden that you'd envisioned, you find that actually those plants won't tolerate that light. That there's a big tree over this spot where you wanted to plant lots of flowers that actually need full sun, and this is a shaded area. So you have to adjust. That happens all the time. That's just a small example, but art is just constantly kind of moving into that question of like, what do I do now? And it wouldn't be fun, I don't think, if that weren't the case, because it would be problem solving, right? If it were really just about like, I have this linear idea, I have to get there, and I'm just gonna like overcome the obstacles so it looks just the way that I want it to, I think a lot of the fun would be gone. So, like when we're creating art, so much of it is just about flow and not knowing how things are going to work and moving with the question. And that's like the bliss of it. That's like the thrill of, creation is that you're constantly moving into the unknown and working with it and letting that inspire you and letting those questions be like exciting, and it's like riding a wave. That's the creative wave, is that each time there are sort of limits that appear to come up, it can't be done the way that I want, there's a block there, this won't work. If you're writing a fiction or something, it's like, this is not realistic, this character would never do this. I had envisioned that the story would go this way, but now that I get to this point in the story, if this character does this, it doesn't make sense with the other things that they've done, and it falls apart. You come into these crises constantly where you've planned this thing and it's not working that way. And maybe it's awful for a period, but that's where the excitement comes in all the time, and like that adaptation and that flow. This is easy to understand with art, especially if you're someone who is creative, or I mean, everybody's creative, but if you're someone who, often creates things, whether they're practical projects, like I said, like building, or totally, artistic in the sense that maybe they're just beautiful for beauty's sake, right? They're not practical things that you're making. They're paintings or books or things like that. But we do not tend to look at relationships and conflict in the same way. So if you come against an absolute limit with a friend, or what appears to be an absolute limit, and you guys are just locked in conflict, which happens, and I mean, I experience it, then we often want to resolve that. Like there's a problem there. What can we do to get around this problem? But really, conflict, interpersonal conflict, human conflict, is not asking for a solution. It's really asking for creativity. Like conflict resolution is a creative action, which is not how we think about it, I don't think. Like it's really the same as making art, which is, I think, a really fun way, if it can be fun, to think about resolving conflict with people. So you come to a limit. It's just like a crisis when you're creating some sort of artistic piece, and you think, this this is what we think. We're locked in some irresolution here. We don't agree, or this is not going to work between us. And if both people are willing to sort of move into the unknown and get creative, so to speak, like think, maybe I'm not seeing something right here. What is it that you're really looking for here? What is it that you really care about here? Why are we coming against this block over and over. By the time you realize that block is there, if you're both willing to say, what is this? Then there can be this movement into this very creative process of resolution where you can discuss, this is why I think I'm doing this. Often, like, your own motives are unclear. You might not realize why you're behaving the way that you're behaving. But if you trust the person and there is, like, healthy relationship there is this space to move in and not know together. And it's more uncomfortable than like any creative project because there's often a lot of heavy emotions involved, right? There might be your own conditioning, your own, like, maybe past trauma, pain, who knows what's involved in that relationship. So it might not just seem fun, but there is a sort of, like, beautiful joy and, like, I don't know, play even that can arise in recognizing that there's so much fluidity in relationship and there's so much space for people to not know together and for, like, the conditioning that you have, the things that you think are just the way they are, to be questioned and to open into that relationship. And then, for conversation to happen that allows maybe unexpected points of connection to arise, right? Maybe you think, this is just the way I am, right? I'm somebody who, I don't know, I'm somebody who doesn't like to be too extroverted, and you're somebody who always wants to go out and party, and you're always pulling me that way, and I'm always pulling you this way. And, I think it's just a breaking point for us because maybe that causes stress in the relationship. This is just an example. It's a pretty trivial example. But then, you talk about that. You think, well, maybe I'm so introverted, or maybe I'm so resistant to socializing because I'm threatened by that. Maybe I feel like I'm putting myself at risk if I'm in these very social spaces, and that's scary for me, for example. And, would it be meaningful for me to put myself into those spaces sometimes? Maybe it would be. Maybe I just don't like it. Let's see. Like, there is just sort of this space for possibility. This is an example. And then, there is sort of like almost a magical opening, a magical resolution that can start to happen between people when they open into this space, open into this question. So that's really all this video is about, is if you're finding absolute limits in your life, whether in something you're creating or in a relationship, sort of testing those, bringing some play into that, bringing a question into that, seeing, is there more space here that could allow things to bubble up in a different way, could allow unexpected resolution. There's a constant coming to oneself, to the spaciousness of oneself, to the same thing we find in meditation, that openness within, when we allow that creativity to dissolve and overcome the limitations that we perceive.